That was a nice move by Pipkins, taking it right to the rack himself. Wide open three, left wing, and it's good. Nylon, the dunk likes that, Matt.
A three from the right side, and it's good! The one, Pipkins, the man, yet again.
Hello and welcome to The Flex. I'm Matt St. Jean.
And this is Joe Howie.
Welcome back, everybody. It's been a while, but Friars basketball is going to be back in action, at least scheduled to be back in action at the time of us recording to this. Friars will be heading out to Omaha, take on number 11 Creighton on the road, 9 p.m. Wednesday night. We got Bill Raftery on the call.
Oh,
So
yes.
That's going to be fun. This is supposed to be part of a triple header, but both of the other games in the triple header have gotten postponed because of Georgetown and Xavier. They're both on pause right now. So the Friars get the spotlight. Got the chance for revenge against Creighton. I'm excited for this one.
I'm very excited for this one. Now that you just told me that Raf is on the call, I'm even more excited. Shout out, Raf. Love you. But
It is, yeah.
But to Big East basketball, this is slated to be a very, very I don't even know what to call it. A turning point of a week, or what could be a turning point week for the Friars. You can go up or down from here. You've got 2 top 25 road games ahead of you, and it starts in Omaha, Nebraska, with the Blue Jays, who, basically handed it to us at Alumni Hall last time before sneaking out of there with a go-ahead dunk to win by 2. I mean, we did everything we could in those final 2 minutes of scratch and claw to make it level at 65, and all that effort, all that comeback. We had rotational guys like Allen Breed and Noah Horkler coming up big at the end, and then nope, let's not play paint defense, and we'll give them a wide open dunk. But the beauty of the Big East is you get to play them again, and now we're in their gym. So this would be a prime opportunity for us to get back on track after a 3-game skid. I mean, I think if you go in there and you play well and you hopefully beat this team, the weight of the last 3 games is kind of lifted a little bit. Not completely, because you'd only be 500 in conference play, but it's a nice breath of fresh air for this team.
Yes, and I think you can kind of feel that pressure building right now. Friars finding themselves in a corner. There's no doubt Ed Cooley knows that. He's got the team excited. They were talking on the radio show that Ed Cooley always does, that weekly one, about how the team's excited. They're ready to go for this, as they should be. This is what you play basketball for. Got a chance to go on the road against 2 very good teams this week and try to steal a win. And Friars have not lost 4 in a row in a pretty long time. It hasn't been since 2012, 2013. They lost 5 in a row at BC, at Brown, at number 4 Louisville, at home against DePaul, and then finally at home against Syracuse, and at the start of conference play there. That's going back a ways. This is an Ed Cooley team. We've seen the Friars go on 2 or 3 game losing streaks all the time. I mean, it feels like you get at least 1 per season, but once you hit 4 or 5 in a row, that's when you're in trouble. And the Friars are going to have a very tall task to pick up a win in one of these 2 games this week.
Yeah, I won't even entertain that thought of a 4-game losing streak. I think the mindset going forward, and this is going to sound very hypocritical coming from me after my reaction to the Marquette game, I think the mindset going forward is we're going to win as many games as we possibly can. I think what Ed Cooley revealed on his radio show this week was very promising with respect to their mental look on this week, because there are teams in the Big East, no doubt, that would look at a road game week like this and be like, whew, this is tough. But from what Ed Cooley is saying is that, the guys are excited. They're amped. I mean, when you have a talented roster filled with players starting at the top with Duke and Watson down to Nichols and Bynum and Greg Gant, I think these guys are excited to play. They've been in some good games. I mean, and we know very well they have the ability to win on the road. They basically had that Xavier game 1. I mean, they basically did. They did everything right. Look at TCU. Did everything right. So
Yeah.
I think now it's time to piece it together and close out the games, because
Exactly.
you did 95% right. to edit what I just said, you did 95% right, except close it out. Now, I mean, I couldn't think of a better opportunity to start closing out road games and
Yeah.
winning.
And the Friars so far this season, I feel like for the most part, they haven't lost games that they shouldn't lose. There's no bad losses, but at the same time, there's no good wins. Every
Yep.
time that the going has gotten tough, not every time, but most of the time the going has gotten tough, the Friars haven't really risen to it. And they've come close a handful of times. And I think you can, I mean, the road games at TCU and Seton Hall are the ones that stand out for that. But neither of those teams is on the level of a team like Creighton. And you go back to last year, the Friars came within just seconds of beating Creighton or sending that game to overtime out at Omaha. That was a very good Creighton team. And they won at Villanova. Friars beat every team in the Big East last year. It's a tall task to do it again, but that's what teams of high caliber and high talent level do. And at some point, if you want to be a very good team, you got to start doing things that most teams don't do. That's going into Omaha and coming out with a win. Most teams don't do that. Only Marquette has done that so far this season.
Yeah, I think to Matt, to your point, to excuse me, to ask this team to beat every team in the Big East is a tall task. But then again, at the beginning of the season, Ed Cooley said that he wanted this team to pick up where they left off. The expectation is that beating DePaul by 30 to cap off what was the arguably the best Big East season in Providence college history is if that's the expectation going into this season, then I'm sure he's already told his guys the expectation is we want to beat everyone in the Big East. And we've seen this team come very, very close. I think it was 2017, 2018. We beat everyone. Seton Hall slipped away from us, but I mean, we didn't even get the chance to play him in the Big East tournament. So who knows? You know, the thing I always like to think of is if you get swept by a team, there's always, always, always an opportunity in the Big East tournament to make up for that loss. So if, the worst case scenario, we lose against Creighton at Creighton, there's a very good opportunity for us to see them again at Madison Square Garden. So ideally, you'd like to beat everyone in the regular season, and that should be the expectation with the talent on this roster. But if you don't, it's not the end of the world, although you'd really like to.
Now let's take a look at this from the other side for a second. Creighton, they are in an interesting spot. As a team that has been very hot as of late, had been very hot. Then this past weekend, they go out to Butler and oopsie, they lose at Butler in overtime. That's something the Friars know a little bit about, going to Butler and putting up a stinker. And that ended a 6-game winning streak for Creighton. So, on one hand, this is they're 11th in the country. They're essentially a top 10 team. They're looking to answer that. Teams that are that good don't lose 2 games in a row. You just don't do it. You find a way to win, especially when you go on the road and then you come right back home. On the other hand, Creighton has struggled at Butler, and historically, some of those losses have kind of carried through. The last time that they lost back-to-back games was early in conference play last season. The first game, the game at Butler. The second game, you come home and play Villanova, and Creighton didn't play well in that one. The season before, they lost to Butler, came home, struggled, and lost at home to Marquette. Creighton has lost 4 straight games at Butler, and every single one of them, they've come home the next game, and the game has either gone to overtime and they've won or they've lost. So they have a history of going to Butler and it knocking them off their game for a little bit. So maybe we don't see that Creighton team with a fire on Wednesday night.
That's a very nerve-wracking statistic you bring up because I think this game on Wednesday, we're going to see a high sense of urgency from both teams. Like you said, Creighton's a nationally ranked. I think that they should be in the top 10. I mean, Villanova hasn't played in a month and a half, and they've held their spot at 3, so good for them. But I think Creighton deserves to be in the top 10 in the AP ranking. They are really efficient, and what I really like about that team is it's not just Marcus Zagorowski and Mitch Ballack. It's Mitch Ballack, Denzel Mahoney, Christian Bishop, Damian Jefferson, and Marcus Zagorowski. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punch. And you and I mean, a lot of media said it was going to be Marcus Zagorowski, the 1-2 punch out of the backcourt. No, they've got 5 guys that can kill you. And I think we saw that on display at Butler. No Marcus Zagorowski, but hey, Denzel Mahoney busted the door open with 29 points.
Yeah,
I
mean
mean,
he had a fantastic game, and they've had a couple games now without Zagorowski. He only played 20 minutes. I think is that in the game against Seton Hall is when he got hurt. And he only played 20 minutes in that one, and they beat Seton Hall. They beat the doors off Seton Hall, and you get St. John's again at home. No Marcus Zagorowski, no problem. 24 points for Denzel Mahoney in that one too. So they're finding ways to make it work without a guy who many thought was the best player in the Big East coming into this season.
yeah, and you say no Marcus Zagorowski, no problem. The fight back to that would be like, oh well, they just lost at Butler. Butler is not a terrible team, and I think what's good for Butler is a lot of their freshmen are getting experience. So at this point in the season, Butler is probably really irritated with the way they've played in conference play, and they saw the opportunity to take off a top 10 team at home. I mean, if I was Laval Jordan, I'd have my freshmen hyped. Like these are freshmen that aren't playing like freshmen; they're playing like sophomores and juniors. Just wait for Butler down the road. Wait 2 years to see how good this Butler team will be. If those guys stick around, forget it. And we said this. We said Butler was going to make noise. But this is a Creighton podcast, so we'll talk about Creighton. But just to, to give a tip of the hat to them.
Yeah, I mean, and the 8 and the 9 in the Big East are not that far off the top 7 because we just saw St. John's knock off UConn at UConn as well. That's why, I mean, we've been saying it all year long. There's no such thing as an easy win in the Big East. You got to bring your A game. If Providence doesn't bring their A game this week, you're losing by 30. If Creighton does not bring its A game, then Friars are going to have a real shot and it could win this one by double digits. That's how talented these teams are. You don't come to play, you're going to lose.
Right. And while I would like to see Providence beat Creighton by double digits on the road, I'm expecting a tight game. It's not going to be tight as in, 67-65 where we make it tight at the last couple seconds. I think it's going to be tight like punch, counter punch because, like I said, both teams are playing with a sense of urgency. Friars have lost 3 straight. Creighton's lost 1 straight. Creighton, they feel a little slighted. They lost to arguably one of the lower teams in the Big East. The Friars were desperate. I mean, 3 straight is it's whatever. It happened. You don't want to make it 4 straight. So it's going to come down to who wants it more. And I think this is teeing up for a great Providence brand basketball game where it's physical. You pound the paint where we have the advantage still. We didn't play well in the paint last time we played Creighton, but we still have the advantage with Nate Watson. And I will stand at the top of the mountain that's near my house and scream it into the Hudson River. We have the advantage with Nate Watson.
You should do that. That would be great content for the account. Go take a video of that.
You think I should?
You should do it. If the Friars win, go do it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Deal.
I love it. This is what we do here. All right, we've talked about some of the big storylines for this game, some of the big overarching things. I think there's a handful of little things we could talk about. So I'll give you the board and I'll let you pick from the topics here. The injuries are definitely going to be a factor in this one on both sides. We got to talk about rebounding. I think we got to talk about the physicality of Creighton. I think those two that I mentioned just kind of go together.
Rebounding will lead into physicality, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we could talk about shooting. So shooting, physicality, injuries. What do you want to start with, Joe?
Let's do injuries. We'll knock that out real quick because I think the injury matchup is actually quite interesting for this game because in the black and white, you've got the point guard, Jared Bynum, who injured himself, ironically, when we played Creighton. He has not played since, and according to Ed Cooley, yeah, that's the big one. On the flip side, in the blue and white, you have Marcus Zagorowski, the point guard, who is also injured. Now, the presence of Marcus Zagorowski has not been missed as dearly as the presence of Jared Bynum. I think that just goes to show you the different styles of each point guard. Marcus Zagorowski's not a set the table kind of point guard. He's kind of a I'm going to shoot it because I can make it point guard.
Well,
Whereas
the
Bynum
other thing is Creighton has more guys that can pass the ball too.
well, yeah, it's there's a, there's a bunch of different factors here, but I think when you look at the one-on-one matchup between the two, Bynum is a more of a true point guard, whereas Zagorowski is more of a scoring guard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, that's absolutely the case. Right now, I would expect that Bynum doesn't play. He's traveling, but he hasn't practiced. I don't see a way he's healthy. And Cooley said a week ago there wasn't a chance of him playing. I don't think that will have changed. Zagorowski, all I can find is that he's listed as day-to-day. Jared Bynum is still listed as day-to-day. I'm realizing now that designation means absolutely nothing. That day-to-day could mean that you just got your leg amputated. Like, they're just throwing things out there. There's no regulation about that. But Zagorowski's day-to-day, will he play? I have zero idea. Yeah, he didn't play the last two games. So if he's out, both of these teams lose their assist leaders, which is going to be very tough. Friars struggled at times trying to figure out what to do without Bynum. And once they figured out how they wanted to attack things, that's when the comeback happened late. It just took them all game. Friars are also banged up. David Duke and Jimmy Nichols are hurt. Reeves and Watson both got hurt in the last game, although they played through it. So there's a lot to monitor there for the Friars. And this is one of those games where I feel like either the injuries really cost you, you're missing key guys and the team never gets out of the starting gate, or it's kind of a Herculean effort. Guys are just pushing through it and playing with 120% effort and locked in because of it. Like, it's one or the other.
Do we have any more information on Duke and Nichols? I know Nate Watson, according to Big Cho, which is Nate Watson's dad, on Twitter, the ankle is okay. We haven't heard anything about AJ Reeves, so I'm assuming it was probably just a Charlie horse. Looked like it was his hammy at Marquette. And I didn't know David Duke and Jimmy Nichols were injured until actually right before the podcast. So do we have any more information on those two? Or is it just like tweaks from Marquette?
Cooley mentioned it. I think I honestly kind of think Duke got hurt against Xavier because the entire Marquette game, he looked out of sorts a little. He did not look as physically there. He did not look as explosive. Jimmy Nichols, I have no idea. This is the first I've heard of it. Of all the injuries we were talking about after the Marquette game, he's the one starter we didn't talk about when it came to injuries. So I have zero idea. But they're both expected to play.
When I think about Jimmy Nichols and injury, I'm going to have to assume it was the Marquette game because he was brutally thrown to the ground at Marquette, and the refs blatantly ignored it. So that's he probably is a little banged up from that, if we're going to be honest. I mean, these guys are athletic and strong, so that probably hurt.
No, it was a physical game. This is injuries will definitely play a key part. I think you can safely assume Bynum won't play, and the Friars will probably roll with roughly the same lineups they have been rolling with. Creighton will probably, that looks like they have played Sharif Mitchell as the starter without Zagorowski in. That's 50-50. We're going to find out on Wednesday night what's going on there. I did mention the word physicality, so do we want to transition and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, great transition. Let's use Jimmy Nichols as a transition point because personally, I'm going to give my X factor to Nate Watson. Spoiler alert. But if there was a runner-up for X factor, I think it's got to be Jimmy Nichols because what we lacked sorely the last time we played Creighton was a presence in the post defensively. And what I mean by that is Creighton just out-toughed us in the paint. They wanted it more. They knew that's where they had the disadvantage, and they prepped for it. Don't get me wrong. They were still great from beyond the arc. Ballack was hitting, half-court shots at halftime, but the paint is where they killed us. They out-rebounded us. Well, I think we actually out-rebounded them, but it didn't feel like it. And
it was 30.
They outscored us in the paint.
Yeah, no, you look at the numbers, and Providence out-rebounded Creighton 38-34 and had 12 offensive rebounds to Creighton 7. But yeah, it didn't feel like that. I'm guessing the numbers are a little bit inflated for Providence just because of the sheer number of missed shots.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at Nichols and you look at Gant and you look at Horkler, Nichols has the longest wingspan of the three. So rebounding and being physical in the paint, I'm gonna put on him for this week, because when you're that long and you have the size advantage over a lot of Creighton's quote unquote bigs, I think you should have a day in the paint. I mean,
Mhm.
Nate Watson will be Nate Watson. He'll put up double figures and he will score efficiently. So I'm not too worried about that. But Jimmy Nichols, I think if he steps up in the paint, I think that is a huge momentum shift for us,
And
because that's what we've been missing.
and I don't think it's just him either. I think, to me, one of the most shocking numbers when you look at the box score from the first meeting between these two, Friars lost that one 67-65, as I'm sure you remember.
Mm-hmm.
The Friars actually shot worse from 2-point percentage than 3-point percentage. Friars only hit 31% of their 2-pointers. And what leads the way for that, you got David Duke, 2 for 12, Watson, 4 for 11. Jimmy Nichols was 3 of 4, so he had a good day there. Reeves was 1 for 3 inside the arc, and then off the bench, Greg Gant, 1 for 3. Horkler, 1 for 4. Croswell, 1 for 4. Meanwhile, on the other side, Creighton, 50% of their shots from inside the arc. That's what you want to do. So that kind of speaks to the physicality we talked about. And it's two parts. It's what you talked about with Watson, that you need to have a post presence at the 5. And that was one of Watson's worst days this season. Tied from a statistical perspective, it was tied for his worst game of the season shooting. And the other thing is, nobody at the 3 or the 4 positions was able to make a difference. You had guys walking into the paint, and I said it on, I think I said it in the post game show for that. But Creighton's smaller than you at those positions, which means they're also faster than you. And that means either you need guys like Nichols and Gant and Horkler to use the extra size to their advantage, or play with a little bit more quickness and decisiveness. But you absolutely cannot be bigger than them and play smaller than them. You can't be bigger than them and get bullied on shots. David Duke can't be taking 12 shots from inside the arc and missing 10 of them. That happens when you're either not getting open or they're being too physical with you. Those are the things. I mean, Creighton's not a big team, but they are physical. They're going to beat you up down low, and you have to be prepared for it. I don't think the Friars were prepared for it in the first one.
Yeah, I agree. My biggest issue with that game, and you just said it, Matt, was David Duke he took 12 shots from inside the arc.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I know he's a great scorer, and I know he's our go-to guy. With the wingspan and the size that we have at the wing position, the fact that David Duke is taking almost all of our shots, we'll leave Nate Watson out of this discussion. The fact that he's taking almost all of our shots inside the arc is a little ridiculous and absurd.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jimmy Nichols is an efficient scorer close to the rim. He's got a great floater. He jumps from just below the free throw line that goes in almost every time.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little teardrop and it goes in. That's all you need to do is get him open. And the flex offense is designed to do that. So while this is great, it's stat padding for Duke, rebounding and scoring in the paint. David Duke should not be out rebounding our wings, and he should not be outscoring our wings in the paint. Now Duke's going to score a lot, and that's because he's worked on his shooting and he's improved and yada yada yada, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But he should not be the one getting all of our paint looks, aside from Watson, because obviously Watson is a different story.
And the other thing is, when Duke is taking those paint looks, it should be because he's driving to the rim or he's got to step back or something like that.
Right.
And even Duke's advantage is that he is incredibly tall for a guard. Like Reeves, both of them should be able to create their own shot, in that even if they're covered down low, they should be able to jump high enough and have that extra length to still get shots off. And the game against Creighton showed that they were able to get the shots off, but they didn't fall. Which means you either need higher quality looks, or now that you have a second look at a team like Creighton, now you know how physical they're going to be when they come out. You know you have to match that intensity or they're going to bully you. But the result, the Friars only scored 65 points in that game, and if the Friars have the same kind of defensive effort and performance at Creighton that they did in that game, you're going to lose the game 85-65 instead of 67-65. So you
Right.
have to turn up the offense. I mean, the Friars can have a better defensive showing. The Friars can have a great defensive showing, and Creighton's still going to put up 75 points. So your offense needs to be able to match some of that physicality.
Right. I think that's a great point. And it's a little misleading because we did not play very well on defense at all that game, and we still only let up 67 points. I think what people will forget when looking at the scorebook, we'll just say the final score. When you're looking at the final score of this game, what you forget is that Creighton went scoreless for like a 2 or 3 minute span in the final minutes of the game. They were not hitting free throws. They couldn't buy a bucket, and we were taking advantage, and we were working on that. So I think that goes overlooked because defensively as a whole, we did not play well that game.
No, the Friars got very lucky, and they got worked in the paint. Denzel Mahoney was 2 of 5 in the paint. Christian Bishop was 2 for 5 in the paint, and then Damian Jefferson 9 of 13 inside the arc. So, I mean, those are the kinds of numbers you really can't give up to those guys, and
Yeah.
it's the double-edged sword of playing a true 5 like Nate Watson. He's bigger than those guys, but he's not as quick.
Yeah, Matt, you're right, because on one end, you've got Watson, who offensively has the advantage because, like you said, he's bigger and he's a true 5-man. And I think with Creighton, Villanova, there's a couple of teams in the Big East, but we'll talk about Creighton. They kind of play a smaller 5, a stretch 5, which is really a wing who plays big. And I think offensively, Nate has the advantage, except for when they put that big guy Kalkbrenner in the 7-footer. But defensively,
And he's not that physical anyway, so.
No, he's just a shot blocker.
Yeah.
On the flip side, Nate, who is a bigger and more traditional center, has a little bit more trouble spacing the floor defensively against a smaller guy who can, beat him on the dribble and can move his feet a little bit quicker. So that's something we took for granted with Khalif Young, who was technically a big wing, a four who played the 5, who could move his feet on defense. But what you lose with Khalif, you make up with Nate scoring. So you're right, It is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I think if we want to talk about other things with this game too, I think we mentioned it before, but what do the Friars do without Jared Bynum? Are you going to go to more Allen Breed? Do you try to play a guy like Horkler? Horkler had 12 points, season high against Creighton in the first meeting. He only played 16 minutes too, and he had 12 points. Do you play him a little bit more? Well, how would you play this if you're Ed Cooley, based on what we've seen?
So I think if I'm Ed Cooley, the lineup that I'm going to use, this is where it gets tricky because I know Allen Breed has started back-to-back games, right? We've lost both, and we don't have our number 1 point guard. If he doesn't start Allen Breed, that basically sends the message that you didn't play well. I mean, obviously he didn't play well, but when you get benched because of it, it stings a little more. I mean, everyone who's played sports understands that when you get benched, it sucks. It doesn't feel good. I don't know if Cooley is ready to crush a freshman's confidence like that. We've seen Matt, Jack, Rick, you, and I are painstakingly aware of Cooley's loyalty to starting veteran guys and guys that have been there. This theory that we have that Cooley prefers to start vets kind of overlaps with what I'm about to say. Whereas if Allen Breed has started the past 2 games, there's a very good chance he's going to start this game as well. He's not going to try and hurt that kid's confidence. I think Breed will get the start at the 1, but I think the lineup that we will see on the floor is a longer, a more physical lineup where you have Duke running the point, Reeves at the 2, Horkler and Nichols on the wing with Watson at the 5. That's the lineup I'm expecting to see. Horkler's really picked it up the past couple games. He deserves the minutes over Gant. Nichols is long, size advantage, and then the other 3, Watson, Duke, Reeves. That's the billboard.
I 100% agree. And I think you're going to see, of the 3 forwards, I think you're probably going to see Horkler get the most playing time, I would hope. I think he's played well recently, and I think he's a very good matchup against Creighton. He's a good rebounder. He's undersized, but physical. So he's not he's probably not a guy you play as much against maybe Villanova or Seton Hall, but against a team like Creighton, Horkler is a really good fit. Nichols, I like Nichols a lot in there when Kalkbrenner is in there. I like him as the matchup, essentially, to get an extra lengthy guy in against the freshman. Nichols worries me. I think he's good on offense against Creighton. He worries me on the defensive end because everybody on Creighton is going to be quicker than him.
And
And
not
then you
only
got
that,
two guys.
he's
You got
also a
two big slow
liability
guys.
for foul trouble.
Yeah, and you got two big slow guys. I'd like to see Gant has struggled recently. I think you could get a little bit more out of him here. I think he's going to be able to see some space, and if he's able to find a little bit on defense, he can be an asset. And I'm not gonna. Nobody's talking about playing time here, but Reeves is a guy who started to turn it on recently too, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do in this one. He only had 10 points last time, 4 rebounds, kind of a typical stat line for him recently. I think he might be a little bit more efficient in this game. I think he might be a little bit more locked in, and he saw what Ballack did on the other end and how influential that was for Creighton. He might be looking for an answer in this one.
Yeah, Reeves has definitely been on the upswing the past couple of games. He's really picked it up for conference play. This game, it screams to me DePaul at home because Reeves played a huge role in that game. And I think if we can get that kind of performance from him on the road at Creighton, it would be beneficial for us, extremely beneficial for us for a W. If you can get Reeves hitting shots in stride, hitting his threes and hitting multiple threes. I mean, like 3-4 threes, playing downhill and playing locked in defense. I think that is the third piece to Duke and Watson that you need to get the W.
All right.
And you get a good performance from Horkler and Nichols. And I'll even say, Gant's going to get minutes. I know he hasn't been playing great, but he's going to get the minutes. If you can get some good defensive minutes from Gant where he doesn't leave his guy and he closes out properly, this could go well for the Friars.
Yeah. All right. We're around the 30-minute mark here, so let's wrap up. Give me it quick, Joe. Who's your X factor? What's your prediction?
My X factor is Nate Watson. Matt, you said it. The last time we played Creighton, he scored in double figures. It was not his most efficient game. It actually matches statistically his worst game of the season. He's played well every game. I mean, even on a night like that where he's not statistically efficient, he still played well. He didn't play bad. I think when you have the size mismatch in the paint that favors Nate, I think he's going to want revenge here. I could easily see this being a 20-plus point game for Nate. You just got to feed the ball to him. Get him going early. He's going to be the X factor. Play big.
All right. And what's the score?
Let me think about this. My score, 68-67 Providence.
Ooh. All right. I like it. I'm gonna say my X factor. I'm going similar concept to you, but different player. I'm going David Duke. Also an inefficient game in their first meeting. He took 19 shots and only scored 13 points. He only hit 2 of those 12 two-pointers. He took 12 shots inside the arc and didn't get to the foul line once, which there's no way that happens again. He's good at drawing fouls. He's gonna get to the line more and he's gonna hit free throws. I don't know if he's gonna have a 36-point game like he did at Creighton last time, but I think he should go over 20. I think he's going to play more physically against Creighton and embrace it a little bit more. I think he's going to hit his shots. I think it's 5 straight games now. He's hit his first 3-pointer. He's been a 3-point shooting machine, and the Friars have been hitting the 3 ball as of late. And if the Friars forwards are able to get something done and play physically, then David Duke is going to have all the space in the world to do whatever he wants to do. And that's a bad thing for Creighton. Because especially if Marcus Zagorowski doesn't play, David Duke is the best player on that floor, 100%. Even with Zagorowski, Duke is probably still the best player on the floor, but without him, 100% it's Duke.
Yeah,
and he can take over a game. So I'm gonna go Friars Say 77-74.
Yeah, I like that score. I like that score.
Yeah, I think I could see that happening. I mean, it's either going to be the Friars in a close one, or it's going to be Creighton by 30. Either the Friars come out to play and they
Please
bring
don't
their
say
A
that.
game, or I mean, it's really one or the other. Either Jared Bynum's loss hurts more than we think, and this team just can't play without him, without a true point guard, or they figure it out and yeah. You're in a corner. You got to come out firing for a game like this. So do it. Let's get it done.
I think the fact that we were able to piece together a comeback run at the end of the game without Jared Bynum was huge. When we played at home against Creighton, I think we spent a lot of that game trying to find a replacement for Bynum. I think now you've already had that trial and error with Creighton. No Bynum playing Creighton. Now you've had that trial and error. Now just deliver. You know it works. You know it doesn't work. You know the guys that are going to get it done. Just deliver. Go in and win. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, and it's obviously easier said than done. Creighton is a very good team, and as much as this would hurt to lose, the Friars can be okay losing this one. The season is not over if Providence loses this game. You're going to see those takes. You're going to hear those takes, and it's going to feel that way. The season's not over if the Friars lose. If the Friars win, though, that is huge. They know it, and you're kind of playing with house money right now. Nobody expects you to win this game. And go out there, bring that energy, bring your own energy into that building, and find a way to win.
Yeah.
All right.
Couldn't have said it better.
All right. Well, we'll end on that note then. This game is 9 p.m. on Wednesday night. If you liked this, the late game. If you liked this, make sure you're following us on Twitter at the Flex Hoops. Follow us wherever you are listening to this to stay updated on our content. And thank you for listening. You'll hear from us after that game, probably very late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning.
Go Friars.